It is Tuesday, February 24th, 2026, and the global financial doomsday clock has just struck midnight. By the time you open your eyes tomorrow morning, the most catastrophic wealth annihilation event in recorded human history will have already detonated. A decades-long pyramid scheme built on monetary fraud, algorithmic theft, and central bank criminality is about to collapse so violently that entire fortunes will be vaporized in seconds, while others multiply by impossible magnitudes. If you want any remote chance of surviving the apocalyptic wealth transfer that ignites in less than 24 hours, you need to subscribe to my channel immediately and join my exclusive WhatsApp group for real-time emergency battlefield updates. What I'm about to expose is so monumentally terrifying that most people's minds will psychologically reject it until it's far too late. This is not a warning anymore. This is your final exit before the entire bridge explodes. We are not theorizing about financial crisis. We are not discussing possibilities or analyzing patterns. We are living inside the final countdown before the complete systemic implosion of the most elaborately engineered financial fraud ever perpetrated against humanity. Tuesday, February 25th, 2026, will be seared into history as the day mathematical reality violently obliterated the fantasy world of fiat currency, paper derivatives, and digital hallucinations. You are about to witness the spectacular, horrifying death of the paper economy and the savage resurrection of tangible value. What makes tomorrow uniquely apocalyptic is that multiple extinction-level financial events are converging simultaneously. The physical silver market is imploding. Sovereign debt markets are fracturing in real time. The bullion bank cartel faces total annihilation. Industrial supply chains are on the verge of complete paralysis. The derivative markets are being exposed as the greatest Ponzi scheme ever constructed. This is not one crisis. This is every suppressed crisis detonating at once. For over 40 years, central banks operated under a suicidal delusion that they could print infinite currency, bail out every zombie institution, monetize apocalyptic debt levels, and permanently suppress hard asset prices without consequences. They were catastrophically wrong. In 2026, their arrogance has collided with immovable mathematical laws. Sovereign debt markets, once considered the bedrock of global finance, are actively disintegrating. Yield curve controls have spectacularly failed. Inflation has mutated into a compounding wealth destruction weapon that no policy can contain. In absolute desperation, governments have weaponized central bank digital currencies, a dystopian control mechanism designed to monitor every transaction and dictate your spending. But this authoritarian overreach has backfired with devastating force. Smart money is fleeing in total panic. Sovereign wealth funds, multi-billion-dollar family offices, and industrial empires recognize the lethal trap of keeping wealth in a digitized, weaponized banking prison. They are executing a violent, unprecedented rotation out of government bonds and digital illusions into the only thing left standing: hard, unencumbered physical assets that cannot be printed, hacked, or confiscated. While gold has served as the traditional safe haven, silver is the nuclear bomb buried beneath the entire global financial architecture. Silver possesses a dual paradoxical identity that makes it the ultimate systemic kill switch. It is simultaneously the indispensable backbone of 21st century technology and a 5,000-year-old monetary metal with intrinsic purchasing power. The financial establishment made a fatal miscalculation. They priced silver purely as an abundant industrial input, completely ignoring its monetary DNA. This catastrophic mispricing has created the most asymmetric opportunity in human history and the most dangerous systemic vulnerability. Over the past 5 years, governments mandated a synchronized explosion in green energy infrastructure, electric vehicle production, solar manufacturing, artificial intelligence data centers, 5G networks, and advanced military systems. Every single sector is absolutely dependent on silver, and the metal is vanishing. Hyperscale AI data centers are consuming staggering silver quantities for thermal management, advanced processors, and electrical systems. The AI revolution has created a demand black hole that is mathematically impossible to satisfy. Modern electric vehicles require nearly triple the silver of traditional cars due to complex electronics, battery systems, and autonomous hardware. The global solar industry devours hundreds of millions of ounces annually, and as efficiency demands increase, manufacturers are forced to use more silver per panel, turning the green revolution into an existential supply drain. The military-industrial complex is quietly consuming massive undisclosed quantities for weapons guidance systems, satellites, and aerospace engineering. The modern world cannot function without this metal, and it is disappearing at an accelerating rate. Here is where the nightmare becomes truly inescapable. The world has operated in a severe structural silver deficit for consecutive years, completely draining strategic reserves that once provided emergency buffers. Why hasn't supply increased to meet this explosive demand? Because Wall Street algorithms and derivative markets have artificially suppressed silver prices for decades, making it economically impossible for mining companies to justify massive capital expenditures for new exploration and development. Environmental, social, and governance policies have made securing institutional funding for resource extraction nearly impossible. Major mining regions in Latin America face drastically declining ore grades, intense geopolitical chaos, aggressive resource nationalism, and collapsing infrastructure. Refiners and mints are desperately scavenging for scrap material, with primary production completely inadequate. The tech giants and auto manufacturers are waking up to a nightmare they cannot escape. The physical metal required to sustain their trillion-dollar valuations simply does not exist in available inventory. Simultaneously, a seismic geopolitical realignment is violently accelerating this physical drain. The expanded BRICS alliance has reached terminal velocity in de-dollarization operations. They are systematically bypassing Western financial infrastructure, settling trade in physical commodities rather than holding depreciating dollar instruments. The East understands that true power in this century is not derived from who prints the most currency, but from who controls the actual physical resources. Through institutions like the Shanghai Gold Exchange, which strictly mandates physical delivery over cash settlement, the East has been methodically draining Western vaults in the greatest wealth transfer operation in history, relocating physical bullion from London and New York to sovereign depositories across Asia. The physical float, the actual unencumbered silver available for delivery in Western markets, has been reduced to a catastrophically low fraction of historical levels. This sets the stage for the fractional reserve derivative implosion that detonates tomorrow. For decades, a handful of massive bullion banks have operated the greatest financial shell game in history. They created a fractional reserve commodity system, trading hundreds of digital paper claims for every single physical ounce actually sitting in regulated vaults. They suppressed silver prices by flooding futures markets with naked short contracts, selling digital silver they do not possess in unlimited quantities to trigger retail stop losses and cap price rallies. This financial alchemy relied on one critical arrogant assumption, that institutional buyers would continuously roll contracts forward month after month, accepting fiat cash settlements rather than ever demanding actual physical delivery of metal. That psychological compliance has been completely shattered. In 2026, trust in counterparty obligations has evaporated entirely. Sovereign wealth funds, billionaire family offices, and multinational corporations recognize that a paper claim on silver in a bankrupt Western exchange is a worthless liability. They are no longer accepting cash settlements. They are presenting their delivery warrants, standing at the vault window, and demanding the physical metal immediately. They are calling the bluff of the greatest fraud in financial history, and the system has no answer. When a major industrial entity demands physical delivery from an exchange operating on fractional reserves, the illusion violently shatters. It becomes a mathematical impossibility to satisfy the claims. This is the exact architecture of the crisis that lands directly on our doorstep this Tuesday. Tuesday is the moment when the chasm between paper promises and tangible reality becomes impossible to bridge. We are anticipating a systemic failure to deliver. The clearinghouses will be forced to confront their empty vaults and face the brutal mathematics. In a desperate survival attempt, the exchanges will likely alter the rules mid-game. They will drastically raise margin requirements, halt trading completely, or invoke obscure force majeure clauses to impose cash settlements on contract holders. But these heavy-handed emergency interventions will only serve as a deafening alarm to the entire global financial community, broadcasting without any doubt that the paper silver market is an absolute engineered fraud. The ensuing repricing mechanism will not be a gradual upward chart trend. It will be a violent vertical revaluation as industrial users panic buy at any price to secure critical supply chains and avoid shutting down entire manufacturing operations. Financial speculators will desperately rush to cover their massive, heavily leveraged short positions. We will witness a short squeeze of unprecedented biblical proportions. The price of silver will completely disconnect from paper derivative markets, discovering its true value in the physical realm based solely on what a desperate buyer is willing to exchange for a tangible ounce in hand. But the implications stretch far beyond commodity trading pits. The financial institutions caught on the wrong side, the major bullion banks holding massive unhedged short positions, will face catastrophic existential losses that threaten their very survival. This will trigger a violent chain reaction of counterparty risk, spreading instant contagion through the broader banking sector. If an institution defaults on its silver delivery obligations, the market will immediately question its solvency across every other asset class. A default in the silver delivery market will instantly delegitimize every other paper-traded commodity, igniting a widespread panicked rotation out of derivatives, equities, and bonds into tangible physical assets. The systemic leverage that Wall Street has constructed over the last 40 years will begin to violently unwind in an unstoppable cascade. We are navigating the brutal transition from an era defined by monetary hubris, where wealth was measured in infinitely printable digital abstractions, to an era defined by harsh mathematical reality, where wealth is measured exclusively in unencumbered tangible assets. The revaluation of silver will force the gold-to-silver ratio to aggressively snap back toward its historical geological norms, wiping out trillions in engineered paper wealth, while simultaneously creating massive new fortunes for those who possess the foresight to position themselves in physical reality outside the banking system. This is a harsh, unforgiving, generational wealth transfer. It is a transfer from the heavily financialized, debt-laden West to the resource-rich, physically grounded East. It is a transfer from passive retail investors holding digital illusions to the informed minority, holding hard assets in their direct possession. The dominoes have been meticulously aligned by decades of fiscal irresponsibility, endless currency debasement, and arrogant, unchecked market manipulation by the ruling financial class. The silver market is not merely a peripheral economic indicator. It is the primary load-bearing fault line of the entire 2026 financial system. The pressure has been building beneath the surface for decades, and the tectonic plates are finally shifting with devastating force. We are standing at absolute ground zero of a global financial reset, an event that will permanently alter the hierarchy of global wealth, destroy entire asset classes, create impossible fortunes for the strategically positioned, and be studied in economic textbooks for centuries as the greatest financial collapse in recorded history. The era of fake manipulated price discovery is drawing to a violent, irreversible close, and the market is about to impose its own ruthless, merciless discipline on the architects of this fragile, fraudulent system. Thank you for joining me on Dark Macro for this emergency critical analysis. Do not navigate this historic catastrophe blind and unprepared. Make absolutely sure you are subscribed to the channel and inside my WhatsApp group right now, because the intelligence updates over the next 48 hours will be the most critical information of your entire financial lifetime. I am John A., and as the dawn breaks on Tuesday, the global markets will be forced to learn a ruthless, timeless economic law that cannot be violated. Central banks and Wall Street algorithms can manufacture all the confidence, credit, and paper contracts they desire, but they can never under any circumstances print physical reality.